Say, Brandon, cheers.
Hey everyone. Hey everyone. Yeah, my name is David Branton. I currently work for Just Eat. I'm a permanent employee working alongside Dave for the last better part of 3 years for my. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm not representing Just Eat today. I'm representing myself, and I've put together a little talk about supporting non-Google Android. And obviously, the most common thing that comes to mind when we think about not Google Android is Amazon and Kindle. It is quite a neglected part of many places I've worked with Android. It's not very attractive from an e-commerce perspective in certain capacities, such as perhaps takeaway. But in other areas, it's quite dominant. I mean, gaming, and especially in non-European countries. America, for example, has very high Amazon Kindle Fire tablet usage. And if you were to build for Amazon Android, as I've termed it in later parts of this slide deck, you'll also be able to, you're building for AOSP. If you follow Commons Guy and all those very early Android leaders, they were quite aggrieved as to the way Play services were going with a lot of the original developments on Android. So Android had this huge fragmentation problem. Play services monolith was the solution. Everything was in there, support library, everything was in that blob. But a lot of it wasn't going back to AOSP, or was going back to AOSP after some time. And that was being remarked upon. And so when we had a conversation, Scott, a few other people in the room, talking about the Google Play Ratchet, another Commons Guy post. It's all about the fact that come August we're going to need to be targeting later, at least nothing more than a year, I think. Come August, you need to be targeting at least 25. Otherwise, you're going to start to see yourself either removed or demoted in the Play Store. We kind of came back to this point of like, why is Google forcing me to do something when it's Android and Android's open source? So first of all, it may be worth getting my slide deck working. There we go. What you're doing right now, actually hands in the air. Apologies to the camera, I'll try and repeat it back. Who's actually supporting non-Google Android right now? So as in actively trying to remove Play services from your app, if you've got Android apps, that is. Quite a small audience, so that's a zero. And that's fine. We've got a few product owners in here right now, and kind of like one of the things which prevents me from being an entrepreneur in many ways. Whether it's possible in technology does not make it a good business idea. And I got plenty of talks to describe that. Yeah, a lot of apps don't really make any sense to say, I'm going to ship it on Amazon. They've got 25 more users. There's other things though, as I was mentioning. Bring your own device is one of them. So when you've got perhaps you're a takeaway company and you're providing an app to your restaurant partners, they can bring anything along really. And who's to say they should have an iPhone, £1,000, and they probably do have that. But ultimately, BYOD is a good application where we should be trying to do the utilitarian thing and supporting as many devices as possible. But also if your app is tablet only, so a lot of apps are still tablet only, especially in B2B, so business to business, whereby like surveying sort of things, people go around with an app, they usually bring your own device as well. So think about those things. Target market, so I had told you not to do it. The best talk ever earlier. Talk title ever. Great talk too. I mean, yeah, Iran. What's mental? I'd love to see an estimation session in that company. But yeah, if you're going to go elsewhere, Play services just doesn't exist. So how are you going to get your location without calling that Fuse location provider? You can do it. It's really easy to do it actually, but it just requires a few more lines of code, and we've all got quite a lot of muscle memory. Everyone just said Play services.do. Ignore. Next. I met my sprint target. So if you're targeting outside of those places, those regimes, those firewalls, then you're going to need to think about this more seriously. It's like it just won't be there. I'll describe what goes wrong when Play services aren't there in a short succession. And timing. So this is where it goes back to kind of like the first point. As I said, I'm not here representing Just Eat, but I'm certainly can give you a bit of information on what we do there. We can go and build for Amazon. We can dedicate a month's effort to refactor that code and compile out all of those play dependencies, and it'll be fun. You might even get some featuring. And those sorts of things may well provide that sort of tech platform, that ubiquity that is very important in later lives, but maybe not your 1.0, because you still need to be one of those companies. So depending on the point of the life cycle of the company, you might have cashed a bit, is what I'm saying. Okay, a few stats. Didn't quite know how to kind of isolate this stat. So this is tablet shipments for 2017. It's quite a recent stat. So it says basically the number of tablets shipped by Amazon.com. It doesn't say Kindle Fire, but every article I read referred to the Kindle Fire shipments in this figure. So there may be some dodginess to this figure. But also highlighting Hawaii there, which albeit are part of the Open Handset Alliance, the people who basically can use Play services. They have plenty of devices and plenty of ranges, completely segregated non-Westerner ranges, which are not part of AOSP in competition with Xiaomi. And they're on the rise because, as we saw in Elliot's presentation there, Android is a very accessible device elsewhere. You could unlock a load of users by just providing a functional app for those countries that have such a high user base. So yeah, take those figures with a pinch of salt, but nonetheless, they're impressive. So Amazon is a platform for selling tablets. It's going to sell you a Kindle Fire before it's going to try and sell you a Samsung Slate. It may even ban you selling Samsung Slates if the Chromecast fiasco is only go by. So you made a decision now as to you're going to go after that next billion, as Google put it, in China, or you're going to tell you not to do it and support Iran. What are you going to think about? I'm going to flick through these. Okay, so mapping, obvious. First one that comes to mind. I haven't built an app yet, didn't have a map in it. Even gratuitous map usage, because it's so easy. Again, .do on the Play services. GCM, so I did a little bit of canvassing beforehand to find out what people want to talk about. So most push message providers are backed by GCM, or obviously APNS. Very few of their own homebrew systems. I think Urban Airship has its own homebrew system going on now. It doesn't stay up very regularly, does it? Geolocation, as I said, within Play services is that beautiful method. Everything, all the boilerplate's gone. Firebase products, so Firebase Analytics, Firebase Performance, and Firebase Data Store. Some of these things work actually just out of the box. They actually don't have intrinsic dependencies on Play, not serious ones anyway. Analytics is an example of that. So you could actually bundle Firebase Analytics on your Amazon Kindle app, and things would kind of work. Not all features, but mostly work. But unfortunately, with the things like analytics, you want to be accurate. So maybe not, a bit of this, a bit of that. It kind of defeats the purpose. So just write them off. It doesn't crash though, so weird. Neat things like the open source plugin. Anyone seen that open source Gradle plugin that Google built? Basically scans through all of the AARs and jars on your class path, extracts the license.md, whatever it is, in the metadata, and then smashes it into a list. I'll give you a quick demo of that shortly. The buggers, use my language, put it in Play services. It's nothing to do with Play services. It's clearly just canvassing files. So we're going to do a little short coding demo of how we can do that. And targeting Oreo, you've got problems like the job scheduler, and Evernote have got a great library I'll come on to in a second. That's again only in Play services. So if you want to do like background jobs, well, as my app does, then you're going to need to implement either the GCM intent thing, I never did that, alarm manager, or job scheduler. So it's more code ultimately. And development workflow changes. I thought I'd highlight this one in a positive light actually. Having supported, because of that technically possible rather than going to make me money, Amazon in my own apps since day one, I've been able to render maps on emulators for a long time. I think we've only had that for the last year and a half, kind of. Okay, we had it a little bit earlier if you could do all those steps to drag Play services onto your phone and crack and sell your soul. And cry despairingly when it didn't work again. But yeah, you could actually get some benefits by having fewer method counts, faster compile times, and ultimately you don't really want to test whether Google Maps works or whether geolocation from Google works. You want to test your actual app. So that actually results in a positive thing by not supporting Google. So some solutions to those. Mapping, static maps. Sneaky little thing I've learned at Just Eat. If you're just showing a map in your location or a restaurant's location, some static information, polylines even, anything you can draw in your hand and not animate or tilt, then you can just ask Google for an image of it. I didn't realise that. It's a pretty neat API. Also, no place services required, no map fragment, none of the heavyweight OpenGL stuff. Trolling you a little bit there, my own library.
What does it do though, isn't it?
Oh, is it? So most things in Google I've learned are paid, ultimately. We'll be fine as indies.
I thought Google Static Maps was used to be free, and then it transitioned to a pay once you go over a certain limit.
Yes, undoubtedly.
Yeah, well, I guess
undoubtedly.
you could say it for every API, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Most of the pricing schedules, even with the Firebase thing, it's awesome. And then you go, oh yeah, I just want to send it to 10 users. Like, how much? Okay. So GCM, I didn't really have a good alternative for you, Scott, sorry. I'm going to do a quick coding demo of how we can basically flavor and provide an alternative implementation, and then have a dashboard that manages your push messages. You're probably using things like AppWire, Urban Airship, or SNS. All of those solutions have great integrations with the people who use it, which is marketing. If you want to support multiple push messaging providers, for as far as I'm concerned, you've either got to pay Salesforce a lot, or you're going to build it yourself. So more investment required. Geolocation, just don't use the Play Services one, use the Android one, it's fine, it works. I saw the Play Services doing is using the Android one with that last location positivity thing it's storing. So if you don't need that. Same with Firebase, analytics, flavor and provide an alternate implementation. Same with the neat things, job scheduler, use that library, great thing. Evernote Android job. So that's essentially wrapping up all of that hard work I just talked about with like supporting multiple suppliers of alarm managers and job schedulers into essentially the job scheduler API. So they've done a lot of that work for you. I mentioned my library there because that's doing the same thing as Android job for Google Maps. So think about the Google Maps V1 API and OpenStreetMap. OpenStreetMap's great. It's actually a very impressive mapping, lots of detail. Especially for like niche things like mountaineering, especially if you're, in some cases those apps are actually better than Google's Maps. I've put some links at the end of this. I'll share the slide deck, but you can see how you can quickly incorporate multiple vendors of these seemingly impossible solutions reasonably quickly with off-the-shelf ones. But I had an alternative title for this talk. We're doing time, 12 minutes. It was called Keeping Play at Bay, Fun Police. So essentially, every now and again I find that I've introduced a dependency and it's pulled in Play Services again, and then when I try and submit it to Amazon it goes, looks like you messed up using so I've employed a technique in order to kind of keep this at bay, and it's called the Dex Count plugin, and there's a second one here using Gradle. But this essentially visualises your method counts. And I realise that I haven't prepped this bit, but I've got a quick demo of what it does. It's a plugin for Gradle, it's one line, and it just generates these pretty pictures. So you might be able to see there, this is my app. It says with Amazon debug, so it's debug variant on my client. And you can see I've got support v4, I've got everything. And actually, as I found out preparing for this talk, that's why I was standing up here frantically going, what? I've actually got Google Play Services in my Amazon playlist. That's com.google.android.gms, and that's percolated in by a third-party dependency again. And so I literally I didn't do this on purpose. So damn it. So that the number and the figure are just the total method counts of the release version. Obviously, multi-dex is pretty close on the debug. Oh no, this is the debug one, isn't it? Yeah, and I was just looking at where that was, and you can see the command I was writing at the bottom here. It was on the second slide. I then went into using my trusty Gradle module dependencies configuration config to try and list out where I was. And this is literally what you probably all saw me as you came in, just frantically typing away at here. And I generated this file called WTF_txt, which lists out all of the dependencies. So in my current app, so I looked up for GMS and realised that I had merged to master because I'm at home developing this app, Firebase Perf, which brought in a whole load of Play Services dependencies. So that's why my Amazon flavour on my app has all of a sudden made itself non-applicable for submission to the Amazon App Store, which is nice. So there's a few tools we can use, basically, is what I'm getting at, in order to find out where you're using Google Play. Yeah, it's and keep it at bay. So that's two little things. Dexcam's just pretty as well for other things because it's got great integration with TeamCity if you're using that, and JUnit as well. So that works with Jenkins, so you can put it into plots, so you can keep monitoring JUnit format. That obviously it's not a testing plugin. Keep monitoring how your method counts are evolving. So when someone introduces that dependency, you'll know it's play services again, and your method counts go through the roof. And then there's the main technique I deploy in order to basically, as I'm using this word, compile out these dependencies. And that's essentially by interfacing and using source tree bindings together with flavors. Common theme of tonight, actually, that flavoring is solving a lot of our problems. But what I'm trying to describe here, and unfortunately I had to get Dagger involved, so try not to fall asleep. Within different flavors, I've got the same name class under the same namespace. It's impossible, right? Except obviously with great other flavors. So if I specify some module, which is a set of dependencies which my app is meant to fulfill, perhaps a mappable, if I was providing a map implementation, then I can simply, under the Amazon flavor, refer to OpenStreetMap, and under the Google flavor, refer to Google Map. And of course, within my main code, then where I've got perhaps a component which is like providing all those injection sites where my modules are providing instructions, I can reference that module, and essentially this all works. Take my word for it. And I'm going to give you a quick demo of what that looks like with the OSS plugin. So I've got it all prepared in the background here. Okay, so I'll walk up. What am I doing for time? I've got under my preference module some activity module which provides access to, this is the Google thing, the OpenStreet license menu activity. The mainline code is injecting an intent. So the key thing here is that the code which is actually in main, the thing which you're looking at when you're debugging, doesn't look anything Google specific. It doesn't say inject OSS menu license activity, import Google Play services, bad, won't work, rejection, all the rest of it. If I just search for where that is in the file. So when I come to actually launch this activity, the licenses activity from my very old deprecated preference activity, essentially there's no indication here that this could or could not be a Google Play implementation of the open source strict license. Open source plugin. So here I return for the Google flavor the open source one from the Google plugin, and then if I go to the Amazon flavor, should I put it in light mode? You can see, but hopefully in the tree on the left hand side, there's two flavors. There's the with Amazon, and here's the application preference. I've just got some normal dummy activity I put together for this talk, which is just something I've written. So that's where that hard work comes in, where you've got, if Google isn't generating and combing all those open source licenses, you're going to have to write your own. But ultimately what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that I can still provide the same functionality, taking advantage of the cool Google stuff, whilst providing a similar experience for my non-Google users. So this is the open source plugin. That's what it looks like. It generates you this list. It's very simple. With a link from that manifest. And if I was to launch the Amazon flavor, I'll let that do that in the background because it's going to take a second. It will just launch a blank activity. Oh no, I just started a new emulator. Damn it. Anyway, I'll come back to that. So is that somewhat clear? I've got a module which is basically my injection instructions. I say I just want this intent, I want to go somewhere. In the Google flavor I've said, right, you've got access to all this cool stuff from Google, try go to the open source menu license activity. And in the Amazon flavor I said, you don't have any of that cool stuff, just launch that homebrew one that we built around the back of the way. And that means I've got essentially no chopping and whatever the chop shop style stuff when you need to launch an Amazon product, which is normal in many development houses I do. I've just got a target, so I just target Amazon, and all of a sudden I've got the exact same parity of functionality. Going back to the presentation. Okay, how long are we doing to time? Alright. I mentioned a few times Amazon rejecting you for stuff. It doesn't actually say no for Google Play Services imports, but it could crash. It tries to wrap it a bit like Mobile, if anyone's used those MDMs, and just try and compile out all the stuff itself in its own part of its process. But you can see how good your app is, and you probably got those emails from Amazon saying 99% of apps just work, and they just don't. I could almost say the opposite's true. They just start, maybe. Yeah, I think let's just go with that. And it'll give you some indication as to what's wrong. And it'll give you some remedial actions too, so areas for app optimization. And it'll highlight some things perhaps that would apply to your non-Google flavor as well. So this is what happens if you try and run Google Play Services code on Amazon. If you play to the Amazon Kindle, it doesn't crash with this application stop, it's just backgrounds. So you just think you're hitting the home button, you're not. It's class not found. It does actually tend to recover quite well from this. They've clearly done some optimization there, but ultimately the user experience is pretty poor. So your crash rate may well be fine, but ultimately you cannot geolocate, but the button's there. Lots of things just start creaking around the background, so you're not going to be doing yourself a favour by doing that. Come back to that guy. Android required equals false. So that's referring to permissions. You can do the same thing with permissions. So OpenStreetMap requires access to your SD card. Google Maps, as of API 22, doesn't use your storage anymore. So you can essentially, in the same way as I've just showed you that flavouring approach in modules, you could say actually provide only request these two permissions on the Amazon flavor and this one on Google's. And by saying required equals true, just exclude it, the same way as a Play Store. If you say I need GPS for this thing to function, it's just not going to allow you to download it to the latest Kindles. It may allow you to download it to the Fire Phone, but no one's got that. So it's a good thing anyway, just for your normal code. So this thing doesn't go live in the Amazon flavor, this should go live in your main code base, as in like you probably don't need GPS for this app to function. So write required equals false. I think it's implicitly true. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. If you declare it.
Yeah. So that'll reduce your availability to those devices. And don't forget about links to the Play Store. A bit like Apple, taking a leaf out of their book there. Even though you'd be fine just bundling Play stuff into your APK, if you have a link to the Google Play Store, no. So that's a complete do not pass go, do not pass. Yeah. So very simple approach there, just with build configs that you could just say, hey, go to this URL, or hey, go to this URL. I'm sure you could have figured that one out. And that GMS apply plugin if statement, who uses GMS for their Play Services stuff? We've seen that foreboding warning saying this must be the last entry in the build grade, or all hell will break loose. Yeah. It does. Yes. Yeah. It's one of those ways in which I forgot what it stands for. Google Mobile Services. Yeah. It does. All hell does break loose, especially if you launch it on an Amazon device. It just errors a lot, but it also pulls in some bizarre version of Firebase, just 9.6.1. So guess who picked that up? Dexcount. And I found myself doing some little cheeky little things in my build Gradle in order to work around some of these problems. Oh,
Did you cancel the?
Oh, come on! If I just try and use a shortcut, should have done that thing with the build source. So I found myself hacking a little bit with it at this point in order to get this to work, where simply I try and selectively compile out. I've gone to the wrong place. Can't quite see from here. I'm looking. Oh, there it is. Can't really see that at the bottom there. Yeah, look at that. Those 3 lines of code there have gleaned me about 5,000 Stack Overflow points. so if you, that line saying you must be at the bottom of the page, or so actually getting this thing to Grid doesn't have a feature of selectively applying plugins. It's not there yet. It's coming in 5. So if you were to try and do that right now, and you've got everything sorted, you've done your flavouring, you've got your OpenStreetMap, you've got your Google Map, you're sorted, you've got your business reason, you would still bundle place services if you didn't do that little if statement, which is annoying. I'm sure ProGuard might have a go at it, but no one wants to go there. It's a different talk. So yeah, there's a few gotchas, but in summary, how am I doing the time? Yeah, I'm about right. Yeah, you too can support non-Google Android today with a bit of rework. But I promise you that rework will make your code a little bit nicer by interfacing everything out and not talking about Google Maps and adding polylines, but just talking about interfaces and things like that. You know, testability that improves. Separation of concerns improves. You can create more technical modules which separate out these sorts of libraries. Don't do it if you don't have a reason to do it, because it's going to cost you some money to do that thing twice. Dexcount and Gradle have been great for me. Interested if there's any other tools people are using for keeping an eye on method counts and finding where you've got transitive dependency. And obviously that Gradle dependencies, one for tracing when something's pulled in again. Use product flavors and dependency injection or interface injection to keep your code if free. Never write if Amazon. Okay, it's better. We're better than that. Yeah, your colleagues won't thank you for it. But there are a couple of gotchas. They're all workaroundable. They will cost money if you don't have this advice. So that's just about it. I've got maybe some time for some questions, but I am before the pub, so I can take them in the pub too. There's some links to the things I've referenced in this talk. Okay.